Johannesburg, South Africa, 2018. We're in a plush area in the north of the city called Sandton, otherwise known as Africa's richest square mile. It's skyscrapers, swimming pools, luxury shopping malls, glitz and glamour. In the middle of this area stands an imposing white building. This is the Hilton Hotel, and at the start of the summer of 2018, this is where the launch event of a new company is being held. The company's name is 21st Century Media, and it's off to a roaring start. It's an extravagant, highly exclusive event, and anyone who's anyone is here in this room. Activists, philanthropists, news anchors, actors, members of Johannesburg's highest society are lounging around circular tables under the gentle glow of candles. There's champagne, flowers, and speeches. Everyone's attention is on the stage at the front of the room. There are 3 big screens. There's a click, a pause, and then a man's face appears on the screens. The same picture on each. He's grinning. This is the man everyone's been waiting to hear from. He's called Tom Motsepe, from a line of South African billionaires. He's the esteemed chairman of 21st Century Media, and he's calling in from New York to join the celebrations. He's wearing a blue waistcoat, a tie, and a designer watch worth 1.5 million rand. That's around $80,000. Today's a special day. It's Tom's birthday. He grins as everyone raises their glass and bursts into song. But there's something that nobody in this room knows. The man on the screen, the one they're all singing happy birthday to, he's lying to them. Because he's not actually in New York right now. He's in prison, a 5-hour drive away from this room in the Hilton Hotel. The company they're all here to celebrate doesn't exist, and this man's real name is Thabo Bester. He's a convicted murderer and serial rapist. This is a story about how a fraudster, murderer, and rapist worked his way into South Africa's most exclusive circles and how he almost escaped justice. This is True Crime Reports, a new global crime show from Al Jazeera, bringing you stories from the global south and beyond that often haven't reached the outside world. Today's episode, Thabo Bester, Prison Break. Let me set the scene. The South Africa where Bester grows up is a complex place. Even in the 2010s, the roots of apartheid-era segregation still run deep. There's a huge wealth divide. Rates of inequality here are some of the highest in the world. And it's estimated that around 63% of the population lives below the poverty line. Sexual assault is a huge problem here. Human rights organisations estimate that over 40% of South African women will be raped at some point in their lives.
I'm Glenda Paul. I'm actually a forensic investigator, and I work in the private space at a company called IRS Forensic Investigations. Interpol labelled us recently the rape capital of the world. Our conviction rates at the moment, it sits between 10 to 12%. And then the other scary statistic is that less than 50% of the recorded cases would result in an arrest.
This is the South Africa in which Thabo Bester grows up. Bester is a murky figure, a slippery character who wears many faces. In the course of his life, he'll use as many as 13 aliases. But Thabo Bester is the name his mum gives him. There's not a lot we know about his early life. He was never officially registered at birth. But reports say he was born in 1986 in a hospital on the outskirts of Johannesburg. Here's what we do know. Bester is born in Soweto, the predominantly black township just outside the city. Soweto is a 200 square kilometre sea of matchbox houses and tin roofs. This is where Nelson Mandela used to live. and it was centre stage in the resistance movement against apartheid. Bester's early years are tough. His parents aren't around, and he's raised by his grandmother. She dies when he's in his teens, and Bester is left on his own. Something that will come up again and again over the course of Bester's life is his taste for the high life. He cons and swindles his way into money, stealing from his victims to buy cars, watches, laptops, luxury apartments. When he's 17, Bester gets his first conviction. It's not clear what for, but this is the start of his criminal life. In 2006, he then spends 2 years inside for fraud. He's released on parole, but within a few years, he's back in prison. This time, it's for rape and murder. Bester pleads guilty to raping 2 women, models, and is given a 50-year sentence.
He stood accused of luring really attractive young women in South Africa under the pretext of offering them lucrative modeling contracts. And he would meet up with them and he would wine them, dine them, and then hold them up, rape them, and rob them of their personal belongings.
But that's not it. On top of the 2 models, Bester pleads guilty to raping and murdering a 3rd woman, an ex-girlfriend of his. She's called Rumfundo Tiulu, and Bester had told her he worked in TV and could get her a job. He stabbed her to death in her sleep. He's sentenced to life. So Bester is serving 50 years on top of a life sentence for raping 3 women and murdering 1 of them. Bester's name is all over the news in South Africa. The media has given him a new name, the Facebook rapist. Bester is sent to a maximum security prison roughly 5 hours drive southwest of Johannesburg. It's called Manawong Correctional Centre. Now, Manawong is enormous. When Bester arrives in 2012, it's the 2nd largest private prison in the whole world. Incidents here are commonplace. Assaults on officers, attempted suicides, hunger strikes. Abuse towards inmates is well documented. Gang warfare is rife. Now, Manawong is a private prison. This is important. Private prisons were introduced here in 1990 to help with overcrowding, and Manawong is run by the UK company G4S. South Africa's prisons are chronically overcrowded and corruption runs deep.
We've had prison wardens outed on social media platforms. They're not supposed to have cell phones. They're not supposed to have access to really electronic equipment. And a lot of our inmates appear to have TikTok and Instagram accounts. They've posted on social media their antics within the prisons, like TikTok dances with prison wardens. That's the level of the corruption within the prison system in South Africa.
Now, at this point, Bester's just 26 years old, and he's got a lifetime behind bars stretching ahead of him. You'd think this would be the end of his criminal career, but it's not. After 5 years in Manawong, guards notice Bester has started having a regular visitor. She's a young woman, glamorous. Her name is Dr. Nandipa Magudumana, and she's a celebrity doctor from Johannesburg's plush suburb of Sandton. She's rich, a member of high society, and has been listed as one of the most influential young South Africans over the years. She visited him several times over the years, writes one journalist. There was even a booking on Valentine's Day. Magudumana is Bester's link to the outside world. She sets up a fake property business run by Magudumana's real company, Archan Holdings. Suddenly, payments start landing into Bester's prison accounts. They've come from Archan Holdings.
They had supposedly offered a service where you could purchase a property and they would come in and they would perform renovations for that property. And you would pay for those services. And what happened was none of those services were really delivered, and they actually pocketed the money.
At the time, though, nobody in the prison seems to know or care that Bester is running a business from behind bars. So when Bester asks for a laptop, the guards give him one. Bester says he's enrolled at college to study graphic design, and new students are allowed access to a computer to help them study. So Bester gets a laptop and access to the internet. And this is where he comes alive. He sets up another fake company. He calls it 21st Century Media, makes it look like an offshoot of the real media company 21st Century Fox, and lists himself as the chairman. He gives himself a new name, Tom Motsepe, and creates an elaborate backstory for his new alter ego. He says he used to be an executive at 21st Century Fox, and he's got various degrees from Harvard. And his new company is the new kid on the block that you should come and work for. Whispers about this new exciting media company move quickly through the highest echelons of Johannesburg society. And as the summer of 2018 arrives, Thabo Bester settles himself against the wall of his cell and dials in for the launch event of 21st Century Media. He's calling in from New York, he tells them, and grins as the crowd sings him happy birthday.
It was surreal, to say the least. I couldn't believe it. It lent itself to a lot of credibility. I mean, he appeared in a waistcoat and a tie, and he looked really presentable. He looked like a businessman.
Bester's sham company, 21st Century Media, will exist for less than a year. However, in that time, Bester is thought to have made millions from the scam. He charged eye-watering prices for events that never happened and took money for contracts that were never completed. It's now widely accepted that Bester would have had a lot of help from corrupt prison officials to keep this scam up from within the prison walls. This is something we'll come back to. But within a year, Bester's luck runs out. He's got too confident and advertises for an event for women in the media. He lists American A-listers, Halle Berry and Taraji P. Henson, as guest speakers. Both women take to social media to say they're definitely not involved, and a social media storm ensues. Then the real 21st Century Fox gets onto Bester's case. They file a lawsuit against him, the mask is gone, the spell of Tom Motsepe lifted, and 21st Century Media is shut down. And then it's 2022, where this story takes another dramatic turn. It's the early hours of the 3rd of May, and there's panic at Manuwang Correctional Facility. A fire's broken out, and smoke is billowing out of cell number 35, where Bester is. The flames eventually die down to reveal a body. It's burnt to a crisp. Bester is declared dead at 5:10 in the morning.
There was a story that was released about a prisoner that had set himself alight at the Bloemfontein prison. And it didn't really get much traction until there was mention that it was Thabo Bester that had, in all likelihood, set himself alight. I was deeply disturbed at how a prisoner managed to get a hold of flammable liquid and set himself alight, and that nobody was able to actually stop him from doing something like that. I was wondering about the safety and security issues around prisoners at that point in time.
Shockwaves ripple through Johannesburg and across South Africa. But in the weeks and months that follow, those waiting for more details about what happened are disappointed. The authorities stay eerily quiet. How did the fire break out? Have DNA tests been done on the body? Did Bester kill himself, or was somebody else involved? Nobody knows. As 2022 becomes 2023, it's becoming less and less clear why the police are taking so long to investigate. 6 months after the fire, It's still not clear if DNA tests have been done on the body, and media requests to South African police come back without answers. So everyone wonders what's going on. Meanwhile, in a small newsroom on the other side of the country, a group of investigative journalists is watching the Bester case closely. We're in Cape Town. This is where GroundUp has their offices. They've had their eye on the prison ever since the fire made headline news. And these are the questions that are bugging them. How can it be that one of the country's most dangerous serial rapists has died whilst in the care of a maximum security prison? Where were the guards? And why have the authorities been dragging their heels? But months into their own investigation, the case blows wide open and takes a turn that nobody expected.
And that's sort of the time that I just had this very strong suspicion that Bester had not died.
When the GroundUp editor heard in May 2022 that a devastating fire had broken out in Thabo Bester's cell and nothing remained but a burnt body, his journalistic instincts smelled foul play. He put two of his best reporters on the case, Daniel Steyn and Marecia Damons. Marecia and her colleague's task is to discover how Bester had died. They get to it, and bit by bit, they start to piece together details that suggest a completely different story to the one they thought it was.
There were just so many unanswered questions and things that just didn't make sense to me. For example, how do you start a fire in a maximum security prison? Are you telling me that nobody saw anything, nobody smelt anything, nobody heard anything? After we published the first story in November 2022, that story luckily did result in us getting multiple tip-offs, and one of these tip-offs was somebody who actually worked at the prison, and they notified us that the CCTV footage had actually been tampered with. And there was also a testimony of one of the inmates, and he said that in the days leading up to this fire, Bester was uncharacteristically happy. He was jovial and spoke about going away very soon, and obviously this inmate was very confused because you're serving a lifetime sentence. What do you mean you're going away soon?
Marecia then discovers that Bester had moved cells shortly before the fire. A prison official had placed him alone in cell 35, a corner cell where it was difficult for CCTV cameras to see him. Secondly, they find a note from that night's logbook. A prison officer had written that the CCTV cameras pointing at the prison exit were not at the correct angle. Thirdly, astonishing CCTV footage emerges from the night of the fire, showing two figures running from the prison in the early hours of the morning. Then there's the body itself. Marecia and Daniel find a police mugshot showing Bester to be 1.7 metres tall, but the body that was found in the cell was less than 1.5 metres tall. Most incriminatingly, the post-mortem results, which are finally leaked around 6 months after the fire, they show that the person whose body was found in the cell actually died before the fire from a blow to the head. There was no smoke in his lungs and a strong smell of paraffin, a flammable liquid, around his bronchi and trachea.
It was just an entire setup of unanswered questions that gave me a very uneasy feeling about the circumstances surrounding the night of the fire, and I was strongly leaning towards the side that maybe Bester might have escaped.
The evidence mounts. Marecia starts to piece together a picture of what's been happening since the fire.
My colleague Daniel got to the office quite early, and just as he arrived, the phone rang. And when he answered it, it was a woman telling him that she had seen our article, and she suspected that she actually had a photo of Thabo Bester, that she was in Woolworths in Sandton City, and she saw Nandipa Magudumana, who is a celebrity doctor, and she's a fan of Nandipa, so she decided to capture a couple of secret shots of Nandipa shopping at Woolworths. But she then saw that Nandipa was shopping with a man who was not her husband. And she decided to then capture a picture of Nandipa and this man. But what was interesting is that these photos rather, were taken on the 30th of June, more than a month after Bester's supposed death.
Then a woman comes forward with a story that months after the fire, she actually met Bester. She says they'd had rough, aggressive sex that had left her feeling shocked and disgusted. Others come forward with stories that suggest Bester's been continuing his scams since the fire. While the authorities continue to insist that Bester had died that night in his cell, it looks like Bester and Mohieddeen have been contacting people on behalf of Archan Holdings. They promise construction services they never deliver on and make millions of rand. It's even reported that someone looking like Bester has been contacting influencers to take part in a new Netflix series that he's working on called Hot Property Chicks, which, by the way, doesn't exist. Under mounting pressure and a pile of evidence collected by Marecia, the Department of Correctional Facilities finally admits, after 10 months, that Bester is still at large. GroundUp has collected and released extensive evidence, all pointing to one conclusion. Bester faked his own death, escaped from prison, and he and Mohieddeen have been actively scamming people since then. News of his escape spreads like wildfire around South Africa, and he and Mohieddeen are being called South Africa's Bonnie and Clyde. His victims say they're terrified to hear the news, and people are outraged. The manhunt is on. And so we come to the 4th of April 2023. Police have finally tracked Bester and Mohieddeen down to a luxury mansion in that rich suburb of Sandton. It's rented by Mohieddeen, and this is where she and Bester have been living for the last year. Police sweep through the mansion. They go from room to room, but the two are gone. They fled 2 weeks earlier. The only thing the police find is an $80,000 designer watch that's been left on Bester's bedside. It's 3 days later, and we're 4,000 kilometres north of Johannesburg, in Tanzania. A black SUV is racing its way towards the Kenyan border when it's stopped by Tanzanian police. There are 3 people inside. It's them, Bester, Mohieddeen, and their driver, a Mozambique national. They're deported back to South Africa to await trial. Bester is formally identified by a fingerprint match, and a parliamentary investigation into the institutional failings is opened. So, huge questions remain. How did he do it? Marecia and Daniel pieced together a timeline and released the details in GroundUp. This is how they think Bester did it.
Towards the end of April, Nandipa had allegedly claimed another body at the National Hospital in Bloemfontein. She said that the body was that of her friend's brother.
With the help of her father, Marecia writes, she gets the body to Manawang prison, where Bester is. They apparently sneak the corpse in via a wooden TV stand, which isn't searched. Meanwhile, Bester has requested to be moved to a corner cell, where CCTV is more limited. His request is approved.
Cell 35 is a very interesting spot for Bester to have been placed in because it's located next to an emergency exit and it's sort of obstructed from the CCTV cameras within that prison cell.
This is where the CCTV technician comes in, a man called Lipolo. GroundUp reports that he tampers with the CCTV system so the corpse can be snuck in to Bester's cell. He's said to be helped by a prison official who's been paid off. Now, logs say that on the night of the fire, there's a CCTV blackout in the building where Bester's being held. So the camera pointing at Bester's cell goes dark.
And at some point in time, In the early hours of the 3rd of May, the body was then moved from the wheelie bin into cell 35. It was dosed with fire, and Bester at some stage had a change of clothes.
Just after 3 a.m, smoke is reported coming from cell 35. The prison official who's alleged to have been paid off, a man called Matsuara, ignores that report, GroundUp will later say. Around the same time, external CCTV shows 2 people running towards the prison exit. Bester is alleged to have escaped, dressed as a prison warden. All in all, Bester is alleged to have had 9 accomplices, amongst them his girlfriend, Nandipa Magudumana, her father, the CCTV technician, and the prison warden. They face 16 charges between them, including fraud, corruption, assisting an inmate's escape, and the violation of dead bodies. But one question remains. If it wasn't Bester whose body was found in cell number 35, who was it? Police eventually identify the body as a 31-year-old South African man called Katlego Bareng, who had 2 children. He'd gone missing in April 2022, a month before the fire. So where are we now? Well, the trial is ongoing. It was delayed multiple times because of difficulties with Bester's legal team, and we're yet to know the outcome. It's currently set for February 2025. Thabo Bester's legal team didn't get back to us for comment. Elsewhere, he denies the allegations against him, saying he doesn't believe it was an escape. We also reached out to all of Bester's alleged co-conspirators for comment, including Magudumana's father. None of them provided a response, but the legal teams of Magudumana and her father emphasised that they are innocent until proven guilty. All of Bester's alleged co-conspirators deny the allegations against them. And as of December 2024, some of them have since pleaded to be granted bail. Elsewhere, reports say that Magudumana's defence is that she herself was a victim of Bester's, who was coerced into it. What does the Thabo Bester case tell us about corruption and bribery at the highest levels in South Africa's prisons? What does it reveal about how private prisons function and where they fail? At the time of Bester's escape, Manawang Prison was run by UK-owned security company G4S, and their role in all of this was drastically called into question. We've reached out to G4S for comment. They say they regret the actions of a small number of former employees involved in the incident. Elsewhere, in response to the stories about the violence that occurs in the prison, G4S South Africa has maintained that the prison is well run and subject to, quote, daily, monthly and annual oversight by the Department of Correctional Services. However, the DCS announced in May 2023 that they've terminated G4S's contract with the prison, which is due to expire in 2026. More shocking, perhaps, is a detail that GroundUp revealed as part of their expose into the escape. They report that the Deputy Minister of Correctional Services, in fact, knew Bester had escaped. A source from within the prison had told him a few weeks after the fire and had reminded him again a few months later. But still, they held out for nearly a year before admitting he'd escaped. We approached the Department for Correctional Services for comment, but they didn't reply. We also approached the South African Police Service to ask why the investigation took so long to get going. They didn't reply.
Given just how elaborate this escape was, it's clear that Bester was not operating in isolation and that he definitely had some extensive help from prison staff. They definitely failed in their responsibilities, I think firstly to prevent this fire from happening, and secondly that this matter took so long to reach any sort of finality.
Towards the end of 2023, Marecia Damons and Daniel Steyn receive a prestigious award for the role they played in exposing the truth about Thabo Bester. But while we wait to hear the outcome of the trial, will anything change within the flawed prison system that allowed this to happen? This was True Crime Reports, a global crime series from Al Jazeera. In our next episode, we're in Canada, where in 2022, an outspoken Sikh separatist was mysteriously shot dead, a story which reaches right into the heart of the American and Indian governments. Thank you for joining. We'll see you next week.